Coach Monken spent the past 3 seasons as the Ravens OC and was expected to follow John Harbaugh to New York. Instead, he heads back to the Cleveland Browns to become the franchise's 11th full-time coach since returning to the NFL back in 1999. Peter Schrager back here with us at the desk. Schrager's your reaction?
Yeah, this is not going to be the most popular hire for a lot of reasons, but then you got to go through the Cleveland side of it. Extremely young team. And if they were going to hand the reins over to one of these 30 or 35-year-old offensive coordinators, you're giving $60 to $70 million to someone who's never done the job before, never been in that position before, never been in that seat before. And you're asking them to go and kind of resurrect a quarterback situation that's been dormant for years, or get the best out of Shedeur, or to go figure out whoever the next guy is. So their justification on this is they know Monken can develop quarterbacks. They know he's had success running an offense. And they don't leave Jim Schwartz kicking and screaming and saying, I don't want to be here. Jim Schwartz is under contract as the defensive coordinator. He has a much more likely chance of staying if you have Todd Monken as the head coach and someone that he looks at and says, okay, he's a peer in the league I've been with, than hiring a 30-year-old or a 31-year-old. It's not a complete rebuild or tear down in this case. They like what they have in their rookie class last year. They like what they have in the roster, and they think they're going to be spending big this offseason. Look, if anything out of this, it's a loss for the New York Giants, who a lot of people thought would be getting Todd Monken with Jackson Dart and joining John Harbaugh, as Harbaugh made it quite obvious that Todd Monken was their number 1 pick. A bit of a surprise if you were to look back on it as far as 6 weeks goes and who would end up with this job. But if you really look at it, there is a lot of reasons why Todd Monken makes sense for the Cleveland Browns right now.
In 2023-2024, the Ravens offense was fantastic. It just took a little bit of a dip this past season. Let's go back to your reaction, Doggy, to Todd Monken now being the head coach in Cleveland.
Yeah, first off, I'm not exactly sure what he did in Baltimore to warrant this great idea that he's some great offensive mind. This year they're 8-9. He never did a lot with the backup quarterback. Last year they had a terrible loss in Buffalo, and the year before that when he was there, they stunk. Offensively, they ran the ball, they let Lamar run, and they lost to Kansas City. So the idea that he won with Kirby Smart, who cares? I mean, I don't know what he's done in the NFL to distinguish himself as this great offensive mind. I don't see the evidence of that. And this goes to show you where the Browns are as a franchise. They don't have a quarterback. Gabriel's not a future of the team. Shedeur Sanders is not the future of the team, despite that stupid Pro Bowl thing. They don't have a quarterback. So you're bringing a guy in who doesn't have anything to work with at the position. I mean, I don't quite – nobody wanted the job. The whole world turned it down. So Monken takes a job that 8 guys said, I'm not interested, whether it's Jesse Minter, whether it's the Cleveland guy, the Jacksonville player coordinator down in Jacksonville with Cohen, whoever. Nobody wanted the Browns job. That's all you need to know. They never should have fired Stefanski to begin with. This is a scenario where they had nowhere else to go, so they take a stab at Monken. I don't know where the whole world thinks that they got the next Kyle Shanahan. I don't know where they think Monken in the NFL. Where's he proved that he's some offensive genius? I don't see the evidence of that myself.
Well, one thing that stands out in my mind is that he is the guy that forgot on too many occasions to give Derrick Henry the football. I'm going to hold that against him. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, even though Lamar Jackson was an MVP under him and a runner-up for MVP, you know, and an all-pro selection, there was a lot that was left to be desired considering the bevy of weapons that the Baltimore Ravens had in Flowers, in Bateman, in Andrews, and likely, etc. You expected more from them at times than you actually got. So that's number 2. Number 3, ain't no way in hell Schwartz is staying in Cleveland to be the defense coordinator when you were a candidate for the head coaching job. You did a job. It wasn't your fault that Cleveland suffered. Their offense stunk and everybody knew it, but their defense was legit. He could make a legitimate argument. He deserved a shot to be the head coach for the Cleveland Browns, and he's going to stay to work under Todd Monken. I cannot see it at all. That's number 3. Last but not least, I'm going to say this, and this is not for anybody else to feel but me, but I'm going to say it here on national television. There were 10 openings. 8 jobs have now been fulfilled. Not one single black head coach has been hired. Robert Saleh is Lebanese. That is it. Not one single black American football coach has been hired as a head coach in 8 of the openings that have now been filled. Nobody else going to bring that up. Don't blame anybody. I'm telling you, I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to remind everybody. And oh, by the way, we haven't heard about interviewing process. We don't know who honored the Rooney Rule and who's violated it. We haven't heard much about that at all. Last time I checked, it still exists. But we haven't heard a word about that stuff. And with these hires, I'm wondering why. And I'm going to leave it at that for now. But make no mistake about it, I'm not going away. I will bring this up at a future date again.
Raiders and Cardinals is still open, by the way. More First Take after this.
The story we bring on the man and his reporting. JJ now tapped in with us. And JJ, Todd Monken, how did the Browns get here?
So he was one of 3 finalists. Nate Scheelhaase, young offensive assistant with the LA Rams. Jim Schwartz, the current, and we'll see how current, defensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns, and Monken. And look, we've been telling you that he was a legitimate candidate there, that the Cleveland Browns really, really liked what he did with Lamar Jackson, what he has done with that offense in Baltimore the last 3 years. And of course, they've seen it up close, right? They play him twice a season. And so Todd Monken, at almost 60 years old, one of the oldest first-time head coaches in NFL history, going to Cleveland where they want to reimagine their offense. They want to be a high-powered offense there. And they hope that Jim Schwartz will stay on as defensive coordinator. After all, he is under contract. We'll see. I don't know that that is going to happen, but certainly the Browns are going to try. But that is why and how they landed on Todd Monken to be their next head coach, a first-time head coach just a few days shy of his 60th birthday.
That 2019 season when Monken was the OC in Cleveland, you had Baker Mayfield throw for 3,800 yards, Nick Chubb run for almost 1,500 yards, Jarvis Landry about 1,100 receiving yards. How much of that offense do you think was enticing to them and hoping to be able to maybe recreate that here now as the head coach?
Yeah, certainly, right? I mean, there's no doubt having that familiarity, but of course, seeing how he has evolved over the past few years, I think more importantly has been what he has done with Baltimore than what he did several years ago. And I'll just share a text that I got from a defensive coach in the NFL just a little bit ago who said, I think Monken is a seriously solid choice. He's consistently tough to go against, and I think they probably made the best decision, which Cleveland has not always done. So that's just one person's opinion, a quality defensive coach that I know who shot me that text unprompted about Todd Monken. A lot of respect for him around the league, and now he gets his chance in Cleveland.
Yeah, that first chance when he's about to turn 60 coming up here next month. When you look around the league and we saw teams turn down the Browns and say, no, we don't want to be there, what do you think this says about maybe that organization and the franchise and the fact that they are, obviously they were going to get a coach eventually, but that it is Monken? What does that say about this maybe relationship here?
So the Cleveland Browns did not have the best head coaching job that was out there, right? And we know that Mike McDaniel withdrew. We know that they didn't really get close on a Jesse Minter or a John Harbaugh. We know that young Grant Udinski, the 30-year-old, wound up withdrawing from the process. You know, this is a unique fit, and it's not going to be for everybody there in Cleveland. Difficult division. They have an offensive line that is essentially all set to become free agents. You got to believe in the quarterback, recently named Pro Bowler Shedeur Sanders, the overwhelming favorite to be the Week 1 starter in 2026. Is that defense, we like the defense, is it going to stay the same if Jim Schwartz is not there, right? And that's a big question mark. He's going to get a lot of phone calls. His phone is probably blowing up right now from calls all the way from San Francisco to the East Coast, let's put it that way. So they were not going to get, let's say, their top choice. This was going to take time. But they do strongly believe in Todd Monken. Let's also be clear about that. And I think both things can be true. And they think that he can elevate them over the next couple years. Will 2026 be a struggle for this team on the football field? I don't see how it can't. And maybe they're gearing up for 2027, right? And hopefully Todd Monken has some safety and security written into his contract that will allow him to figure things out this upcoming season as they, I don't want to say reset, I don't want to say rebuild, but they're going to have to spend some time getting this roster back to really competing at a playoff caliber level like it was just a few years ago. And so Todd Monken, if he can get through this year, he should be able to lead this team forward beyond 2027.
You brought up Shedeur Sanders. That's exactly where I wanted to go to next with all this, because of course Shedeur did not want to go to Baltimore to be the backup to Lamar Jackson, didn't want to be drafted there. Now he gets a chance to be coached by Todd Monken. What type of level of play do you think Monken can potentially unlock under Sanders? Is the hope that obviously he's not as mobile, but can he become I'll call it a Lamar Jackson light?
I think that they just want to get the best out of Shedeur Sanders, right? And Todd Monken is a smart enough offensive guru that he can unlock him, whether that looks anything like Lamar Jackson or not, right? I think that you put those two guys in completely separate buckets. The Browns and the front office, and let's be clear, the Browns front office and they believe that Shedeur Sanders has so much more potential, and that when he gets a full offseason, when he gets a full training camp as QB1, when he has, a coach like Todd Monken who is really going to wrap his arms around him, that he will look better than he did for most of the 2025 season. Again, we have to be clear that Shedeur Sanders, by almost every metric, was one of the worst regular starting quarterbacks in the NFL this past season. Rookie or not, that's true. That is a fact. And there are things that you can point to and say these are mitigating factors. Sure. The fact is that people have factors around them all the time, and they typically, when they get 7, 8 starts, don't play this poorly and don't get the opportunity to keep getting starts. Shedeur Sanders did, and it looks like he's going to be the week 1 starter in 2026. So this offseason for the Browns, for Todd Monken, will be about trying to maximize the most out of Shedeur Sanders. Of course, they still have the Deshaun Watson question. What happens and becomes of Dylan Gabriel is another question. Are they going to draft someone in a mid-round? Again, all of those things. But right now, the focus, of course, for Monken is on Shedeur Sanders.
And after that is maybe priority number 1, trying to convince Jim Schwartz to stay and to retain him as defensive coordinator. Like how important is that for the development of Shedeur to be able to have a defense that can help him out?
Yeah, it's important for the entire organization to keep Jim Schwartz. Again, he is under contract, but I don't think that the Cleveland Browns are going to hold Jim Schwartz hostage necessarily. And I would just appeal to anyone's human condition and sensibilities where if you're up for a job and you believe that you deserve the job, and then you lose out on the job and they're saying, yeah, but we still want you in the exact same position because that's what we believe. We are telling you we believe that is your ceiling. Do you want to stay there? That's difficult, right? And so again, I believe the San Francisco 49ers needing a defensive coordinator. A lot of people have said Gus Bradley there, and it very well may be Gus Bradley there taking over for Robert Saleh. They have to call Jim Schwartz. Other teams are going to call Jim Schwartz. I'm telling you that. If they haven't already, and you don't call him directly, but you call indirectly. And we'll see if there are other defensive coordinator moves happening around the NFL already this late into a young offseason. But the Browns are going to try, and we'll see over the next few days if they ultimately can be victorious in that.
And another opening now close in the NFL of all the head coaching circles. JJ, thank you so much. Always appreciate it. With now.